right?
It is.
So
This is the first hybrid meeting we've had since March of 2020.
wow. So good to see everybody that's here, and welcome to everybody that's on the call as well. So if you haven't, just a couple of housekeeping matters. Again, make sure you sign in, even if you are here in the room. Please make sure at some point you sign into the so we know you were here. And so with that, Holly, if you were ready, why don't we go ahead and start off with roll call.
And this is Daryl, one more housekeeping item. Because we have people in the room as well as online, please, even for the people in the room, please announce yourself, say your name before you start speaking so that the interpreters online can interpret your name for our accessibility participants. Holly, go ahead.
This is Holly. Yeah, thanks, Daryl, especially since we can't see who's speaking on the computer. Those of us who are joining remotely, announcing yourself will be really helpful. All right, with that, I will do roll call. All right, representing CCI, Steve, Tina, or Marie. Representing CML, Megan. And I actually received an email from Megan that she would not be in attendance today. Representing the accessibility community, Cheryl.
Hi.
Cheryl said hi.
Representing the members at large, Billy.
Present.
Yes, hello there. Billy here.
Representing BESP, Tim.
Good afternoon, I am here.
Also representing BESP, Mary Jane.
I'm here. Thank you, Holly.
Representing ILEX, Wes.
Here. Wes is in the room.
Representing ILEC, Darla.
I'm here on computer.
Representing wireless T-Mobile, Jenny.
Good afternoon. I'm here virtually.
Representing wireless from Viero, Monica.
Good afternoon. I'm also attending remotely.
Representing the CLEX, Cindy or Lindsay. Representing CLEX from Bandwidth, Jay or Erica. Okay, and now representing 911, Jody from Gunnison.
I'm here.
Jody is in the room.
Danette from Morgan.
Hi, I'm here online.
Jennifer or Jeremy from Grand Junction.
Jennifer's in the room.
Can you hear the people in the room when they talk?
Yes. Representing Larimer, Kimberly or Amy.
This is Kimberly. I'm in the room.
Representing AdCom, Jackie or Ron.
This is Jackie. We're here.
Representing Eagle, Beth. Representing Sterling, Valicia or Paula.
Felicia's on the line.
Holly, Beth Dobransky is here from Eagle.
This is Holly. Thanks, Beth. All right, representing Jeffco, Jeff.
Irvin is in the room.
Representing Delta, Karina. Representing Douglas, Deanie or Shannon.
This is Deanie. Remote.
Representing 911, Andrew or, I'm sorry, representing Denver, Andrew or Jody.
This is Andrew. I'm in the room.
Jody's online.
Thank you. Representing Jeff Com, Michael or Kyle.
Mike is in the room.
Representing Aurora, Tina or Scott.
Tina and Scott are in the room.
All right. Representing Thornton, Brandy, Sean, or Ashley. All right. Representing Westco, Mandy or Matt.
He's in the room.
Representing Garfield, Carl or Tom.
Carl is in the room.
And representing Boulder, Patty or Christine.
Yeah, Patty's on the phone.
Thank you. Let me check the chat real quick, just make sure I didn't miss anybody who said they were here in the chat. Randy.
And Holly, it looks like you didn't mark Billy Allen, but you did mark Megan McKillop. If you got those two switched.
Oops. Thank you. All right, so it looks like we do have a quorum, 79% attendance. And I'll turn it back over to you, Scott.
Did you get Brandy from Thornton? Was in the chat.
Oh, was that? Sorry, I overlooked that. Brandy. Gotcha. Okay, this is Holly. I think with that, we're at 83% attendance. And now I will turn it back over to Scott.
This is Scott. Thank you, Holly, for that. So with that, if everybody had a chance to review the minutes from our March meeting, right? Not January. For our March meeting, can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Moved by Jeff, and do I have a second?
Tina second.
Tina second. Any opposed, please say so now. All right, the minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. Moving on, we have a resource center vacancy. Oh, Darryl, am I looking at the wrong agenda? It's weird. I think I'm looking. I apologize, everybody. I think I'm looking at the wrong agenda.
Yeah, I think you must be looking at an earlier agenda. Meanwhile, I'm making everyone seasick trying to get this camera situated. Because I don't think we need to see Jeff's shoes. Maybe we'll just turn this off for now.
Okay. This is Scott. Apologies. It helps if I look at the correct agenda. So we will move on to the next item on the agenda. We have no presentations for today. So for our standing report, I will turn it over to Darryl for a PUC staff update.
Thank you. This is Darryl. So PUC proceedings, we've got a 911 rulemaking underway right now. That's 22R-0122 T as in Tom. The initial comment period is over along with reply comments, and we did get comments. Oh boy, did we get comments. There was a public hearing held on Monday of this week, at which point the judge, the administrative law judge, directed the parties to engage in workshops and for commission staff to coordinate those workshops. So I'm working with the parties right now to coordinate those workshops. I'll provide additional details on that as we move forward. We have not had our first workshop, obviously, since the hearing was just this week, but we hope to get started on those next week. Federal Communications Commission proceedings. This is under PS docket 15-91 and PS docket 1594. It's a further notice of proposed rulemaking on wireless emergency alerts. They issued this further notice of proposed rulemaking on April 22nd. You can access this by, if you go into the standing reports document that Holly sends out in the folder for the meetings for today, and click on that standing report document, there is a link in the PUC staff update section of the report that will take you directly to the further notice of proposed rulemaking. No deadlines have been established for comments. The way it usually works is they have to publish it in the Federal Register first, and then it's a 30-day and 60-day period from the point that it gets published in the Federal Registry. So be watching for that, and please read that further notice of proposed rulemaking if you think that's something that you may want to comment on. State legislature, there was a bill that we were tracking, House Bill 1404, which was called the Colorado Critical Infrastructure Resiliency Initiative. It was assigned to the House Energy and Environment Committee. And if the bill had continued, it would have created a state board appointed by the governor to monitor and assess the resiliency of Colorado utility infrastructure, including telecommunications infrastructure. Obviously, that's something that we would have wanted to be involved in, potentially have some opportunities to educate the board on 911 issues, but that bill failed in committee. But I did want people to know about it because sometimes when a bill gets introduced and fails late in the session, it just means that it came in too late in the session to be taken with a thorough consideration. So it might get introduced again next year. We haven't seen any substantive movement on federal legislation, probably not surprising considering the state of Washington right now. The Build Back Better bill, as many of you know, contained a sizable grant program for 911. That bill is probably not going to come back in its current form, but there has been some talk about bringing back pieces of it to introduce separately. So there is still a possibility that grant program may get introduced in future legislation, but I don't have any other inside information on that. Oh, and I had state legislation in here twice, but we already talked about House Bill 1404, so we don't need to talk about that again. State 911 surcharge distributions for the month of March, it was $1,081,482. That is the largest distribution we've had so far. Unfortunately, the reason for that is because, and we've been able to track it down, because of the 988 surcharge when going into effect this year. So remember, the March distributions are from January surcharges that are on people's phone bills. Unfortunately, a number of the companies remitted their 988 surcharges, which are new this year, to the 911 fund. So those are being transferred to the correct fund, which means that next month's distribution will unfortunately be, or this month's distribution actually will unfortunately be a little low because it's making up for that. The April distribution was more on target at $613,814.96. The really good news is that because of the increase in the prepaid wireless 911 charge rate for 2022, we have seen over 12. Somebody keeps moving my screen here. Somebody keeps, there it is. Because of the increase of the prepaid wireless 911 charge, we have seen in both March and April over $1.2 million in distributions, which is really high compared to what it was in the before. And
Daryl,
yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. If folks aren't using your cameras or actively speaking, do you mind turning them off? Just when we're screen sharing and trying to watch the interpreter, it makes the interpreter's box really tiny. So if you're not actively speaking, thank you.
And I can shut off.
Daryl, you can keep yours on.
All right. We'll leave it on for now. Anyway, so that's really good news, and hopefully we'll continue to see those high rates of distribution going forward. So, and the prepaid wireless charge distributions, frankly, have been more reliable than the state 911 surcharge distributions, which seem to go up and down quite a bit every month, depending on when the carriers remit their payments to our custodial agent. We do have our new 911 auditor, Jolene, who is now working with the companies very diligently to try to improve compliance and make sure that the companies are remitting on time so that we don't see these large up and down differences in the state surcharge distributions every month. Couple reminders on upcoming deadlines. On July 1st, that will be the last day that you can file an application with the commission for an increase in the number of concurrent sessions for that application to be considered for reimbursement in 2023. You can file it after that date, but that means you will have to wait all the way until 2024 before those concurrent sessions could be included in your percentages for distribution. So if you are increasing your number of concurrent sessions for any reason, please make sure to get that filed by July 1st. And we recommend providing us with a draft copy before that date so we can let you know if there are any deficiencies in it, so that you can correct those before you actually file it officially on July 1st or by July 1st. On November 1st, that is the last day to file an application with the commission to increase your emergency telephone charge rate above the threshold established by the commission and have any hope of it being approved in time for a February 1st effective date. As a reminder, the statute now requires that effective dates for emergency telephone charge increases be either February 1st or June 1st. And because of the timing related to notices going out, that means that November 1st is the last day you have to file that with the commission in order for it to have a chance of being effective in time for a February 1st effective date. And again, we do recommend that you provide us with a draft copy before November 1st. So maybe as early as October 1st. So it gives us plenty of time to look it over and let you know if there's anything missing from it, because that'll make the application go much smoother when you file it officially. And with that, that is all I have for the PUC update, unless anybody has any questions for me.
This is Scott. Are there any questions for Daryl? All right, thank you, Daryl. Appreciate it. BESP report from Lumen.
Hey, this is Tim. I don't have anything specific to the BESP, but I did want to comment on the upcoming rulemaking workshops. I'm very appreciative that the ALJ was willing to do that. I think they're going to be very helpful. I'm hopeful that many of you participate in those. I think that there are some good conversations to have. I do think that while there are always things that can be improved upon, the services has been running really well, and I do think that we want to make sure that we get some of these new rules right rather than do it quickly. And I do believe that is the opinion of everybody that was participating in the hearing on Monday. So I just wanted to say that I'm looking forward to it, and I'm hopeful that many of you will participate and contribute to the conversation. And that's all I have today.
They're not responding because I muted us by accident. Scott, go ahead again. Sorry about that.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Daryl. This is Scott. Apologies, we accidentally muted ourselves. So for the BESP report for Intrado, if Mary Jane, if you were on the call.
I am. I don't have anything to report today, though. Thank you, Scott.
This is Scott. Thank you, Mary Jane. Appreciate it. Bylaws committee from Kimberly Culp. Any updates?
This is Kimberly. No updates, no changes to the bylaws recommended.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Kimberly. Jackie Louise, do we have an update for legislative committee?
Hi, this is Jackie. Unfortunately, I'm assuming by now, and I have reached out to the representative and have not heard back from her, our misuse of 911 bill that Kathy Rayleigh so happily put together for us has not gone anywhere. And so we will redouble our efforts. I will set up a legislative committee and see if we can get this bill going again next year. I will also reach out to the representative again. Thank you, Tracy, for taking on the meeting with her in my stead when I was gone, but it doesn't look like it's moving forward at this point.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Jackie, for that. Are there any questions for Jackie?
This is Daryl, not a question, but just a comment. Sometimes it takes multiple years to get legislation through, so I hope people don't get discouraged by that. I think it's an important bill, and I think, if you keep trying, it will go through.
Agreed. Thank you, Daryl.
And Mrs. Scott, thank you, Daryl and Jackie both. For Equal Access Committee, Cheryl, do you have an update for us today? Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. Have you met? Except she said that with more emphatic.
Daryl, this is Holly. It's a little bit hard to hear.
Cheryl is saying we met March 31st, 2022 virtually. Our guest speaker was Peggy Heil. She is with the Colorado Office of Research and Statistics, Colorado Division of Criminal Justice. She was wanting input on ways to improve the response time for 911. It was a very interactive meeting. April 28th, we had Greg Hansen from NOAA present on EAS WAE state rewrite of plans. In addition, I am leading an advisory work group under the HSAC AFN committee. What's that? Access? I don't know that. Oh, anyway, this is to help. What is it? Access and personal.
Access and functional needs.
Functional needs. Oh, AFN, I know. I thought you were talking about ASAP. I should know what AFN is. This is to help provide recommendations to the State Emergency Communication Committee in rewriting the EAS and WEA plan inclusion of accountability, of accessibility, excuse me. And that website, you provided that? I emailed that website to Daryl.
And the website address will be in the standing report document.
Okay. She goes on, our next meeting for 911 Task Force Equal Access Subcommittee will be Thursday, May 26th, from 2 to 3:30 Mountain Time, Denver. Let's see, and she has another link. Presenting will be Deaf Link on accessibility hazards alerts systems. And this is very important because if you send out an audible alert, there's a mandatory evacuation. And what? They don't say where. If you've gotten one, it'll say there's emergency evacuation in your area. And what's your? 5 minutes later, there's a banner across your TV screen saying it's been canceled. The deaf community will not hear that, of course. Will not, but the blind community will not see that, excuse me. She also says the ADA National Network Learning Sessions it will be Friday, May 20th from 9 to 12. And it's on effective communications and emergency preparedness virtually. And this is a different presentation. Not what we have seen in Colorado. So if anyone is interested, notification or what? Rewriting the EAS into EA. Plan inclusion of accessibility. Let me know. Okay, that's it. Go ahead.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Cheryl and Gil both for the update. Does anybody have questions for Cheryl's update? Okay, thank you both. Moving on, Daryl for the outage committee.
Turn my camera back on here. This is Daryl. The outage committee met on March 30th to discuss an alley outage affecting Mesa County. There was still some disagreement at the end of the meeting as to whether the outage was a basic emergency service outage or if it was an issue with the customer premise equipment at the PSAP, or perhaps a combination of both. Lumen agreed to identify a subject matter expert from Intrado who might be able to assist in a follow-up meeting. So far that hasn't happened, but we're continuing to work on that. The outage itself occurred on January 5th. We have two other special investigations currently active, one for voice and alley outage that affected several public safety entering points in southeast Colorado on March 2nd, and an outage that affected Phillips County on April 8th, rather. So we'll continue to work on those, and we'll hopefully have more to report on each of those at a future meeting. That's all I have.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Daryl, for that. Are there any questions for Daryl? Kimberly.
This is Kimberly. Daryl, are you gonna open a special outage investigation for our 911 outage that happened on Friday?
If you request it, yes.
Daryl, this is Holly. Can you repeat that question?
So the question Kimberly asked is if we are going to open a special investigation for the outage that they had in Larimer County on Friday. And my response is that there are several automatic triggers for a special investigation, but then there's also the trigger of anybody requests it. So I don't know if it met any of the automatic triggers, but we will definitely open one up if you want one.
This is Kimberly. I do, just so we have a way to document some of the additional conversations we're gonna have. I think it probably needs a special, but you probably don't have eyes on that because you didn't get the alert. You got the alert after when our outage was at 8 a.m. on Friday. They didn't even notify until after business hours.
Correct. This is Daryl, and one of the.
Sorry,
one of
Daryl,
the-
this is Holly. We're gonna need you to repeat what Kimberly said. I'm so sorry.
I don't know that I can.
Summarize.
It was a time threshold issue for outage notification, so I think that may meet your.
We still can't hear anything.
Okay, she's saying that she's way over on the other side of the room. She's saying that she thinks that the outage might have met the automatic criteria anyway, but we don't know that yet since I don't have the full report, and that is correct. I still don't have an end time for that outage. But if it was over 4 hours, then it automatically meets the criteria anyway. But I'll make sure that it gets a special investigation regardless.
And this is Scott, gentleman in the back of the room.
Bill Dugan with CRCA in Canyon City. We had one for over 24 hours, and I didn't hear you mention that for an investigation.
So this is Daryl. Bill Duggan from Fremont County said that they had one for over 24 hours. The information I had from CenturyLink was that was a CPE issue. That was an issue with your CPE provider. If you don't agree with that, though, I will reopen that and we can start a special investigation on that one as well.
I can discuss, this is Bill, I'll discuss that with you. I don't believe it was just CPE equipment.
Okay. So we now have 5 open special investigations.
Daryl,
So
this
we
is
got a lot of
Holly.
work. We got a lot of work ahead of us. Go ahead, Holly.
Daryl, can you just repeat where Doug's from?
Fremont County.
Thank you.
And because Fremont County also takes 911 calls for Custer County, it was actually an outage affecting both counties. I'm sorry, what's that? Yes, and it's being recorded.
It's Bill Dugan from Fremont.
What did I say?
She called him Doug.
Oh, Bill Dugan. Yes, Bill Dugan, Duggan.
That is correct.
Okay.
And this is Scott. Thank you for the information. Did anybody else have incidents that need to be reported still? All right. Thank you, Daryl, for the report. We will move on to prepaid and collections again from Jackie Louise.
Hello again, this is Jackie. I don't have an update, but it is on my radar to set up a meeting with this committee as well.
This is Scott. Thank you for that, Jackie. Any questions for Jackie? Okay, then we will move on to the reports committee. Back to Daryl.
So as everyone remembers, this committee produces a report to the commission every other meeting. So every 4 months, there is no report due for approval at this meeting. It will be at the July meeting.
And Mrs. Scott, thank you for that, Daryl. For the ESINet users group, Kimberly.
This is Kimberly. I get passed the baton. I'm no longer the chair.
This is Holly. If Kimberly has a report, could she move closer to the computer? I apologize. There's 32 of us online, so I feel like we might beat your ratio in the room.
Kimberly stated that she is no longer the chair of the ESINet users group committee. Is Tina Powell here or online? I didn't hear her earlier. Kathy is the
Holly.
vice chair. Kathy, do you want to give a report?
I actually was not able to attend the meeting today. I can see some notes, but I don't know what happened, so I don't want to make any.
So I guess that leaves it to me since I'm the secretary of the ESINet committee. So this is Daryl. We did meet this morning. There were a number of issues that were discussed, and we will continue to meet. No, actually, there's a lot more detail than that. A lot of it centered around issues related to misrouted calls and how to handle misrouted calls, as well as terminology used by Lumen technicians when they're talking about outages with 911 authorities and public safety answering points, and how it may be confusing to some people because some of that language seems to be still rooted in the legacy environment instead of the ESINet environment. CenturyLink is going to be and Intrado are going to be looking into those issues. So that will probably be an ongoing discussion at future ESINet users group meetings. And if you want more detail than that, I do have the recording of the meeting, and it will be uploaded to our YouTube page probably within the next few days.
Air Force Base consolidation.
Yes, there is also the issue that there are 3 military bases, not Air Force, Jeff, Space Force bases that are still pending migration to the ESINet. And those are still being worked. Those issues are still being worked through by Lumen, Intrado, and DISA, which is the Department of Defense Information Security Administration or Information Services Administration. I can't remember which. Okay, anybody else who is on that call today, what did I get wrong? Because I wasn't prepared to do this.
Sounded good, Daryl.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Scott, thank you, Daryl, for stepping in to do the update. Are there any other questions if Daryl is able to answer? All right, thanks. We'll move on then to GIS committee update from Matt Gage.
Hi, everyone. Just to recap from the report, State OIT GIS has agreed to help promote and educate about data preparations for NG 911, but their resources are very limited as they're sort of in rebuild mode in their department. If you were interested but couldn't attend Intrado's recent NG 911 GIS seminar, but you're interested in perhaps hosting a regional Intrado NG 911 GIS meeting, get in touch with me and we'll coordinate with Intrado on that. Also, some of you may have received some high-level NG 911 GIS surveys. We put those together to sort of develop a sense of where our GIS data is weak around the state in preparation for NG 911, but also to assess what the relationships are at the local level between the 911 and GIS departments. If you didn't get one of those emails that went out to the various lists, get a hold of me and I'll send a link to you. That's it.
This is Scott. Thank you, Matt. Quick question for Daryl. Could Matt potentially even post that to our task force website, the subcommittee? Do we have we do have a subcommittee.
Absolutely, yes. This is Daryl. There is a subcommittee. There's a GIS committee page on the task force website. So I can get that information posted there for you, Matt.
Appreciate it.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Matt, for the update. Does anybody have any other questions for Matt?
Hey, Daryl, would here or back on the other have to be a time to mention the AT&T?
So this is Daryl. I can talk about that. So Jeff asked if now would be a good time to talk about the announcement yesterday from AT&T Mobility. Yesterday, AT&T Mobility published a press release stating that they are offering location-based routing, what we in 911 call geospatial routing or spatial routing for all of their 911 calls. This is a change that is being made on the originating service environment side of the network. So it doesn't involve anything with the EZNet. All of the changes to the routing are happening before the call ever gets to the EZNet. But what it means for the 911 centers is that you may hopefully see more accurately routed 911 calls along the borders with other public safety answering points. So in legacy 911 and continuing on today, how wireless 911 calls are usually routed is based on the cell tower location. What AT&T is doing now is determining the latitude and longitude of the caller and routing based on that information instead. I've also been reminded that T-Mobile made a similar announcement almost a year and a half ago, although they did not turn it on for every 911 center. Their policy was that the PSAP had to request that the service had to be turned on in their area. I've asked them to let me know what the process is if a PSAP wants that turned on for T-Mobile so that we can get that information out to people. And as soon as I get that, I will distribute that. Andrew?
This is Andrew. I can actually provide some of that. We've been recently dealing with that I've got a resident that lives on the border between Denver and Aurora. Every time she calls 911 for her elderly mother who lives with her, she gets Aurora and has to be transferred. Contacted the NOC for T-Mobile. They sent me a form that I had to send to Tina. Both of us have to fill it out, send it in. But from what they told me, it only applies to that cell sector. So it's not like they do it for all of Denver when I request it. It's one cell sector at a time. So not ideal.
This is Daryl. Holly, were you able to hear that? Holly?
Sorry. No, I was not able to hear that. Wait, which part? I heard everything Daryl said.
Were you able to hear Andrew?
No.
Okay. What Andrew said, Andrew from Denver 911 said that they have been looking into location-based routing with T-Mobile because they have a resident who lives on the border of their jurisdiction. And every time they call 911 for their elderly mother, the call goes to Aurora PD. So he's been working with T-Mobile to get that turned on. But unfortunately, the way it works for T-Mobile is they turn it on for each specific cell site individually. So it's not ideal. Was that a good summary? Sometimes I pay attention, not all the time. I could have said that.
This is Holly. The only way I knew what was actually being said was through the interpreter, but I couldn't hear.
So the interpreter could hear, but nobody else could?
No, I think the interpreter was also listening very carefully.
Okay.
Interpreters have very trained ears to pick up low frequencies.
Very good. They should be dispatchers. Continuing on with that discussion, you're right, Andrew. That is absolutely not ideal. The difference with AT&T's approach apparently is that it's not opt-in. They're turning it on. They're going to be turning it on nationwide. They turned it on in about 12 states, I think, first, and Colorado was one of them. So we should start seeing a difference right away. I'll be honest, I wish they had done some communication ahead of time with the 911 community, simply so that we could be prepared. But if it works well, if it works appropriately, then it shouldn't be an issue and should actually be good for everybody. Bill?
Bill Dugan, I'm just curious, do you have any information on where they're pulling their data set from?
Bill Dugan asked where they're pulling their data set from, and the press release said that they are working with Intrado. So Intrado has the PSAP boundaries. They've always had the PSAP boundaries for routing 911 calls, even though they were plotting cell tower locations against that PSAP boundary before. Now they're plotting latitude and longitude for callers against that PSAP boundary. So we'll be monitoring this. If it works well, there's a good chance that maybe the other wireless carriers will follow suit, which could be a boon for us. This was discussed on the EZNet users group call today, what effect this might have on future plans for the EZNet, because geospatial routing is one of the things we've been talking about for implementation on the EZNet. The initial discussion we had with Rich Johnson from Intrado was that, yes, this does help, and it's definitely a good thing, but it doesn't necessarily remove the necessity to implement geospatial routing on the EZNet itself, because you still need that for other types of calls, not just wireless calls. You need them for landline and VoIP calls as well, in order to be fully I3 compliant, and that there may be other routing rules on top of what the wireless carriers are doing that we want to implement, that we will only be able to do once we go to a full I3 routing solution on the EZNet. So I think that's something to be talked about in the future in the EZNet users group. And I do think that this development, especially if it's picked up by the other wireless carriers, removes some of the urgency for geospatial routing, but it doesn't necessarily remove the long-term need. Anybody else from the EZNet users group meeting call today, if you have a different recollection of that conversation, feel free to chime in. All right, thank you.
This is Scott. Thank you, Daryl, for that update as well. Moving on to the Colorado Public Safety Broadband update. Is Ed on the line? I can't remember if Pam gave the update last meeting.
So we have Brandy Ryder or Ritter, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, as the new contact in Ed's place. Brandy, are you on the call? I'll reach out to her between now and the next task force meeting to make sure that she's able to participate in these, or if she wants to continue participating in these.
This is Scott. Thank you, Daryl, for checking on that. For the PSCS report, Dee Dee, if you are on the call, if you have an update.
Hi, this is Deanie. I don't have a whole lot to, other than last week we hosted the PUC Radio Summit in Parker, Colorado, and it was a very good turnout, and it was really nice to have it in person again. And I really liked a lot of the
This is Scott. Did you like a lot of the silence?
Sorry, I think something cut out there for a second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, there wasn't a lot of silence, actually. There was a lot of talking, but there were a lot of good programs that were offered and presentations, especially the Dr. Nicoletti. He's always good to listen to. I think it's possible that Jennifer might have a little bit further because I think she's on the committee. So that's it for now.
Jennifer says she thinks you covered it very well.
Oh, I don't know about that. Thank you, though.
This is Scott. Thank you for the update, Deanie. Are there any questions for Deanie? Okay, we'll move on. I believe This is Scott again. I believe the SWIC report, did Pam give the update last meeting? Pam Monsees?
That's who the SWIC is right now. I don't know. Pam, are you on the call? Pam Monsees? Well, I can give a little bit because Pam and I went to an interoperability workshop hosted by the National Association of State 911 Administrators at the end of April. The purpose of those workshops is to talk about interoperability between the different silos of emergency communications, for lack of a better term, between the SWIC, the WEA coordinator, both of which are Pam right now for the state. Policy, which was supposed to be somebody from the governor's office, but we weren't able to get anybody to attend with us. And 911, with myself being the only state employee to fill that role. It was a very good experience, very good workshop. We did talk about potential ways that we can improve communication between 911 and the other disciplines in the future. Right now, I already provide an update every month to the Public Safety Communications Subcommittee, the one that Deanie just gave a report on. I'm hoping that in the future we can get more updates from either PSCS through Deanie or through or on SWIC from Pam at our task force meetings. The main goal there is to improve communication and coordination as much as possible. And that's all I have.
And this is Scott. Thank you for that. Daryl, any questions for Daryl?
Daryl, I'll just mention that about 2 months ago, we realized that we need an additional FIPS code for our IPAWS public alerting COG application, so we can get it amended to add a FIPS code. And I reached out, and their office is somewhat turmoil and haven't heard anything back yet. So I don't know if they've got anybody else. Since Jack Cobb left, it's kind of been up in the air. I just throw that out there in case anybody's trying to get anything done with their COG or their permit application.
Okay. Cheryl, did you have something?
Jeff. Can we talk after?
Sure.
That's what I'm working on.
Oh, great.
Did you hear that?
So this is Daryl. I don't know how much you heard. Jeff said something about a FIPS code and needing a FIPS code. And Cheryl's offered to speak with him after the meeting because that's something that she's working on. But I will also reach out to Pam because I think a lot of that's falling under her right now. And by the way, this is not something we've really been tracking in this task force because it doesn't relate to 911 specifically, but all other communications. So the state radio operation is moving from OIT under DHSEM or under DPS. I'm not sure which. And Pam is moving from OIT to that other agency to head that up. And so they're going to have an emergency communications department under DPS that's going to be doing those two things. No implication to 911 as long as 911 is managed by tariff. It pretty much has to stay under the PUC. So no implication to that, but that is something that I think everybody should be aware of.
This is Scott. Thank you, Daryl. That's good information. Any other questions for Daryl? Okay, moving on to Division of Fire Prevention and Control report. I have Monica on here, but if Vicky is on the call also, Monica or Vicky?
Or Connie, if she's,
or Connie?
I think Connie might be taking those now.
This is Connie. The meeting was very long and detailed in the wildland urban interface and the legislation concerning that, and a lot of fire legislation, which you won't know, none of us will know till tonight what has made it through.
Great.
And by the way, we probably should have done this earlier on, but this is the first task force meeting we've had since Connie Johnson joined the Colorado 911 Resource Center. Monica has not left, Bruce has not left officially, but both of them have full-time jobs that are keeping them busy. So Connie has agreed to come on on a part-time basis and fill some of those roles that Monica is no longer able to do with her new position. So thank you, Connie, and welcome.
Thank you.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Connie, as well. Any questions for Connie? Okay, so we'll move on to the 911 Resource Center update. And so, Connie, is there anything else you would like to share?
Nothing more to add than what Daryl just said.
Great. Thank you very much. Again, this is still Scott. Karen Marquez is hiding behind. Karen Marquez, do you have an update for the group?
From Rapid SOS's side, a lot of stuff happening. We do have a session on Friday talking about a pilot that's happening here in Fort Collins with vulnerable communities. So I would encourage people to come and listen to that. We're also participating in some of the accessibility work that's being done here in the state of Colorado with some things that Aurora is going to be working on very soon as well. Emergency data exchange is a kind of a, well, as it says, emergency data exchange, not necessarily CAD to CAD, but sharing the information across disparate systems. So those are some of the initiatives that we're working on right now, as well as Premium, which Bruce can talk more about. So aside from that, we're here to help, especially in the cases of these outages that have occurred. As many of you know, and Kimberly has shared so eloquently before, if you have Portal up and you have an outage, you may still see those wireless calls coming in that can help you triage. So I just want to encourage everybody to have it up, whether or not you're using it every day, because you never know when these outages are going to happen, how long they're going to last, and really what the reason is behind it. So if you need anything, when you have an outage, if you have an outage, please reach out to our team. As well, any other cases. So wildland fires, you have multiple jurisdictions that are working in a unique area. Reach out to our team because we have stood up what we call tactical boundary files for those agencies to have interoperability within their portal accounts, so everybody can see those calls for service where they wouldn't normally see them.
And this is Daryl. I pray to God you were able to hear that online.
This is Holly. What if I tell you no? I'm just kidding. I actually heard her really well. Whatever you just did to like your computer or flipped it, or maybe Karen just has a voice that really carries.
Karen knows how to project.
It's the diaphragm.
That's right.
Command presence.
Yes. This is Scott. So thank you very much, Karen. Are there any questions for Karen? Okay, well, thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. We have on the agenda to go to break. Do we want to take a quick break? 5-minute break, or want to just keep pushing through or down to old business and new business?
What does everyone think? Keep pushing through. All right.
The consensus in the room, consensus in the room is to push on, so we will. So this is still Scott for old business. The 2022 recommended standards approval. Daryl.
This is Daryl. So I introduced these in January and then said we would vote on them in March to give people time to review them before our March meeting. And then I completely forgot about them. So they did not go on the March agenda. So I'm bringing them back now. What this is about is that the commission rules require that the task force on an annual basis publish a list of recommended 911 standards for the commission to consider when they are reviewing matters related to 911 and basic emergency service. So for the last 3 years, we have published a recommended standard list. That recommended standard list was updated for 2022 based on changes to the NENA standards as well as the APCO standards. A copy of that was provided to the task force members prior to the January meeting, and then it was discussed at the January meeting. So I don't know if everyone's forgot about it like I did since then, and will not be able to vote on it. Otherwise, I would ask that we open it up for a vote to approve those recommended standards for 2022.
And this is Scott. So based on that, is there anybody who has reviewed the information that either believes that some of it is out of date or that there are new standards that need to be included on that list? Okay.
This is Kimberly, I reviewed the information, but that was months ago, but I don't recall having any problems or concerns with the standards as presented. So I would make a motion to adopt the standards for 2022.
And this is Scott. If you couldn't hear on the line, Kimberly said that she reviewed the original list and did not see any recommendations for changes. So she has motioned to adopt the list as it stands today. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jeff. Any opposed, please say so now. All right, well, thank you, Daryl. I think we can show those as being approved and move forward.
Excellent, thank you.
This is Holly. Was that Jeff Irvin that seconded?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Apologies, Holly. So this is still, Scott, under new business, we have discussion of emergency notification services. And I do not recall.
This is Daryl. This was something that Pam and I discussed at the interoperability workshop that NASNA held in Texas last month. And then I put it on the agenda, and I don't remember what, what we were going to discuss. I think part of it was that emergency notification services are very disparate across the state, with different jurisdictions purchasing their own services. Not all of them are interoperable with each other. So when you have an emergency or a critical incident that spans more than one jurisdiction, sometimes it's difficult to get emergency notifications out. I think I want to discuss this further with Pam before I bring a recommendation to this task force. But I think one of the things we potentially talked about was whether there should be not that we want another committee, but whether there should be another committee to discuss this issue and come up with best practices and recommendations for use of emergency notification services and ways that maybe we can improve interoperability between those systems for large-scale incidents. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Kimberly, I saw your hand go up.
This is Kimberly. I'm not sure how this applies to the 911 task force. And so I know you briefly brought it up before about we deal with communications, just from a scope of the task force and how it applies to emergency notification. When they're dialers, we have WEO, that's FEMA. FCC is looking at wireless carriers. We have NOAA, which is a federal agency. So I'm just trying to figure out how this body should tackle something on our demarcation and make recommendations. From a user's perspective, I know that we really work hard collaborating amongst our government partners across county lines, boundaries, to have those conversations, sharing data, sharing polygons. We've done a lot of work with Boulder. We've had fires that have crossed jurisdictional boundaries. But I'm just trying to understand if this is the right place for that conversation to happen. So I don't know what thoughts you had on that with Pam.
And Kimberly was doing more projection this time. Were you able to hear her?
This is Holly. Yes, I was able to get that.
And there's another question in the room, but before I do that, I'll just respond to that. And Kimberly, you're right. This may not be the right forum.
And the only comment I would make, Daryl, to that is that, this is certainly a place where we have so many subject matter experts and people, various sizes of authorities and what have you, that come together, and it's a forum where, we can share our knowledge at times where there isn't another forum, I believe, that is discussing this topic.
And this
statewide.
And this is Daryl. That was going to be my only thought on it, is that this may not be the most appropriate forum, but it might be the most convenient forum, just in terms of having the right people in the room, but maybe it's not.
Daryl, this is Holly. Can you just let me know who? I'm sorry, I see you getting frustrated with me.
That was Jeff.
Okay, Jeff Irvin, thank you.
And the only other two things I would say is that, the two topics that I don't know if you guys discussed when you were down there were, WEA utilization. And, our issue right now is getting people to opt into the notification system. And we've talked about that as far as billing and ways that we can maybe promote that.
Right. And that was discussed as well, the fact that, WAA is opt out, but all other forms of ENS are opt in, which makes it sometimes difficult to get participation. Cheryl?
Thank you. This is Cheryl. And we can roll this conversation into my Wi-Fi Advisory Board? For RIA and EAS? For the rewrite? Because I assume some people aren't hearing me. We have a place. We have a place. Where we have this conversation. And it's under Sadie's meeting. Homeland Security. Advisory Committee. Access and functional needs.
Thank you, Cheryl. So Mandy?
Hi, this is Mandy. I kind of agree with Kimberly that I'm not certain that this is particularly the best forum. However, I think that, like Jeff said, it is a place where there's a lot of subject matter experts. In addition to that, somehow that if it does come as a subcommittee for this task force, I think that that subcommittee should be tasked with working with emergency managers in the state, because ENS often, you know, just like everything in the state of Colorado, it's governed and administrated a little differently. And ENS is a great example of that. It's used by emergency management. It's also used by 911 centers and in a little bit different capacity. And I think that if it's going to be a subcommittee, that's great because there's a lot of knowledge and expertise. But we need to reach out to emergency management, who also should be working with Cheryl's groups, and that so that everybody comes together. And having the ability to share data across different systems and across jurisdictional boundaries is, I think, very, very relevant. And as Kimberly said, natural disasters or other emergencies don't always know jurisdictional boundaries.
Very good thoughts. You know, and the only other, this is Daryl, the only other, you know, nexus to 911, it really doesn't have to do with the commission's jurisdiction as much as it does the funding of it, is that you can pay for ENS out of emergency telephone charge funds. So there is a connection there, but you're right, this may not be the most appropriate forum for it. So other than that, I'm not recommending any action today. I did want to bring up the topic and discuss it a little bit. So that's all.
This is Scott. Thank you, Daryl. Any other thoughts or questions regarding that? Okay, then we will move on to CCOA introduction.
This is Kimberly. Can you hear me online if I project at this level?
Would it be easier if you
I could come up front if that's.
come up?
All right. I might yell, I just feel like I'm yelling across everyone behind me.
That would probably be easier for the people online. Thank
How
you.
about that? Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. So the CCOA is the Colorado Council of Authorities. It is a project we have worked on, my goodness, since 2015, if not earlier than that. We are live and we are official. So the purpose of the Colorado Council of Authorities is to give the 911 authorities a voice in various issues when we need to file comments at the rulemaking, for example, to file comments for the NOPR for WIA, which we're also working on with other authorities. So the Colorado Council of Authorities is critically important in our opinion, due to the fact that there are issues, for example, for the 911 task force or even the commission, where we diverge, where carriers may have an opinion, 911 has a different opinion, or the PUC can't comment on a particular opinion. We saw that specifically with legislation when we were lobbying for working on legislation. And so the vision of the CCOA is to have our voice heard collectively. When we've worked on legislation previously, legislators asked that, who's the voice for 911? Well, we're local control, local authority. We don't really have one single voice for 911. So we've always tried to find a way to have that voice, and the CCOA allows us to have that voice. Right now we have 10 members. So we've grown this week, which is fantastic. So we have 10 members who have started the CCOA, and of course it's open to all 911 authorities to join. From a dues perspective, this is an association, much like the Police Chiefs Association, Fire Chiefs Association, Sheriff's Association. So this is a 911 authority association. We haven't set our dues structure yet. That's something that the CCOA is going to be discussing. And then we would be setting the dues. We have contemplated those dues to be per SIP session because that's a common language that we are used to right now as it relates to the state 911 surcharge. So that's something over the next, hopefully, month or so, we'll have a discussion on and look at setting our dues. So the CCOA filed comments in the rulemaking. We were represented, we were able to offer testimony. And what that process was a collaborative process, trying to find common language and challenge those rules and just put some other definitions in there, look at some consistency, supporting some initiatives as well. What is great about the CCOA is if your authority decides that you want to take up a separate issue, so you agree with everything on the CCOA, but you have maybe one particular area that you haven't been able to collaborate on or agree to, then that authority, of course, could always file comments in addition to. So LEDA could always say, in addition to the CCOA, we want to file comments to emphasize our opinions in this particular matter. So it's not like you have to agree with everything to join an association. So we just wanted to bring that up. We're going to be collaborating and working with the Resource Center and obviously with the task force. We want to make sure that we can get on the agenda and give updates and that we're not crossing paths and going in different directions or duplicating anybody's work or efforts. So if I may open it up for any questions that somebody may have.
Absolutely.
Or anybody has on the CCOA, if we have time. Anything? No. Carl, a founding member.
I don't have a question, but I think it's important for this group to get moving forward because legislation, it seems with 911 seems to keep on popping up, and we need to be able to have that legislative, voice, more freedom, I think is the best way to put it. And be able to hire a lobbyist if we need to.
Carl, that's a great point, and this is Kimberly again, and we've borrowed people on our community to lobby on our efforts, and then we have gone and made our case to the police chiefs to have their lobby work for us, their lobbyists, and with the Sheriff's Association. There are times, even in our amazing rewrite of Title 29 the last time, that we almost had them not support us, and the fire chiefs were kind of on the fence with it. The sheriffs were like, well, we're not quite sure. There were a lot of questions about surcharge and what that would look like in prepaid. So it is important that our voice is represented down at the Capitol. We know that lobby work makes a big difference. They know what's going on and they're able to shuck and jive and manipulate and do all the magic that lobbyists do. So right now, Douglas County, and I believe the other contracts that Jackie Louise had, they funded 100% of her work and never asked for reimbursement for that lobby efforts. Athena also lobbied when she was with Denver 911, and same thing with Denver. They funded 100% of that work that in that time when they were down there working on that. And so we all benefited from it, and very important to have that shared cost. The other benefit is for all of you 911 authorities, boards that are out there, that maybe your attorney is shared attorney legal services, and you can't always be represented on some of these big matters like the rulemaking. You can attend an operational call, get the high notes, understand it enough, and then legal counsel for the CCOA puts together that filing, briefs you in terms that you can understand and take back to the board and talk about. So it's nice to have that representation, even if you don't have the time or in-house skills to be able to tackle something like file comments for the rulemaking and anything else that comes our way. So please consider it. If you're interested, just let us know. And we'll add you into our email group and let you know what the dues are going to be. You can start attending. Yes.
Hi, this is Jackie, and do they just reach out
right now I'm the chair of the CCOA, so you can reach out to me and we'll get you added in. Okay. Thank you.
I have one quick question. This is Daryl. Would it be beneficial to have CCOA as one of the standing reports every month, or not every month, but every meeting? I think so.
I would love to be automatically added. If not, I'll probably make an every
Just
other
do
month
it.
request.
Just do it. Just do what you did this month every month. No, I think the standing report makes sense. And I'll just say that I have seen similar efforts work well in other states. And Kimberly, as you mentioned, the police chiefs have their association, the sheriffs have their association, the fire chiefs have their association. So it only makes sense for 911 to also have representation and a seat at that table. So I applaud the effort.
And this is Scott. Thank you, Kimberly, for that information. And so we will put this as a standing item on the agenda going forward. I do have one item that is not on the agenda per se under new business, and I apologize to both Daryl and Holly. I should have asked earlier this week, but Daryl, Holly, and I and Jennifer actually had a call with a group called Ascendigo. They are specific to providing training on how to receive calls and respond to calls that are related to autism. So specifically, some of the issues that autistic individuals face, where they may be attracted to certain environments, they may be attracted to certain noises, sounds, certain lighting conditions. And so there's information that this group has that they put together in a training format to help inform 911 centers, so that if you do receive a call for an autistic child or an autistic person, doesn't have to be a child, maybe it's a missing persons report, but once they notify you that they are autistic, there's different types of questions and different techniques. They have spent a little bit of time training with one of the police departments here in the state. And so based on our discussion, we did not think it was necessarily a 911 task force topic, but we did ask them to provide some printed material that we could put at the registration desk. And we also encouraged them to work with the Colorado chapter of NENA and APCO to be able to offer up that training to the PSEPs that are interested. So my apologies, Holly, I forgot to ask you if you received those materials, if we were able to get those for the conference.
So this is Daryl. She was able to get those FedEx to me, and they're out on the registration table right now. So if you're here for the conference, or if you're not here for the conference tomorrow, on the way out, grab one of those flyers off the table. Has information that can be useful for telecommunicators when handling those types of calls. And I did talk to her about the possibility of a presentation at a future task force meeting. We didn't have a presentation today because it was our first hybrid meeting back, and I thought I'd be pushing my luck to have a presentation connected to it, which is probably a good choice since we couldn't get the projector to work. But I do have her on the list for potentially next year because we're booked out that far on presentations. So I do plan on having her in for a presentation at some point in the future. And I have also found out that she has since spoken with Vicki Pickett, our very own Vicki Pickett, who is now the NENA education coordinator, and working with NENA on potentially putting together some training through them. So it'll be good to see that develop.
Daryl, it sounds like a great topic, and it would be interesting to get with them and see if they can encourage the families of their folks and autistic persons also to update their Smart 911 profile information and perhaps premise information.
The convergence of discussions is interesting because right after our meeting that we had as a group with her, and the name of the organization, by the way, is Ascendigo. After the meeting we had with her, she emailed me and asked, do you guys use Smart 911 in Colorado? And I said, some of our agencies do, not very many, but some of them do. So she's kind of learning those topics as she goes along and how those can benefit her community.
And Mrs. Scott, again, just to kind of stress what was eye-opening for me through the information she shared is one example. There was a child who's autistic who had wandered into into a forest, and there was a missing child report, but they knew that the child was attracted to sounds of rocks. And so once they informed the deputies that were searching, they were actually able to hit rocks together and that attracted the child to come out, and they were able to find him and save him because of it. So it's things like that, that little tips that we would be able to help locate these individuals on a quicker basis. So it's very, 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 very interesting and good information. If you have the opportunity to talk to her, it'd be fantastic. So this is Scott again. Did anybody else have any other items for new business or open discussion, either way? Okay. With that, does anybody else want to ask Daryl to speak about something else? Okay, well, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. We have 5 motions, so I'll take that as a first and a second and a fifth. Any opposed, say so. All right, well, I also want to thank you again to our interpreters. Thank you so much for your service and the help on this. And thank you, everybody, and looking forward to our July meeting. Take care.
Thank you, Scott.